Thank you, Sharon. Our reading today is from Hebrews 11, verses 1 to 6.
Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous, when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith Abel still speaks, even though he is dead. By faith Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. By faith Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Rahab. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned for something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect.
We've finished the reading now. Aren't you supposed to say something?
Sorry?
That's not even the Bible you're reading. What is it?
It's one of the books I got for Christmas. It's got to a really exciting point and I'm just desperate to find out what happens next.
Well, you could always go to the end and read the last page and then you'll know what happens.
I don't understand people that look at the last page of a book. Surely that spoils the whole thing.
Earlier on, we read a few verses from Hebrews 11 about the faith of people like Noah and Abraham and Joseph. It can be really easy to skip over these stories because we know the ending. We know how it all turned out. But it must have been a very different experience at the time. Noah was building the ark for years before it even started to rain, and he didn't know how long he was going to be on the ark.
And there must have been loads of times when Joseph was tempted to give up trusting in God, thrown down a well, sold as a slave, put in prison.
And Ruth isn't mentioned in Hebrews. She had no idea how things were going to turn out when she left her homeland to go with Naomi. She certainly had no idea that she would end up as the great-grandmother of King David.
Many of these stories in the Old Testament, they skip over years and years of hardship and difficulty and challenge in just one or two sentences. And it can be easy to forget that these people that we read about in Hebrews 11 and elsewhere in the Old Testament, they had to put their trust in God at times when things were really hard. And they maybe even wondered where God was and what God was up to. Sometimes it took years and years and years before they saw God coming through on the promises that he'd made.
They didn't know how their stories were going to turn out. Sometimes we see people like Abraham becoming impatient and trying to sort it out himself, taking things into his own hands. But in the end, they had to let go and trust God. Sharon's now going to introduce our second song.